Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to today's Catheta webinar. We're coming to you live on August 1st. If we have any NLC webinar first timers in the room who don't know, Catheta gets their name from the Creek word for learning. And today you'll be learning about your money or your life from Russ Siegel, who's the executive director of a native CDFI called the Sequoia Fund. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're also thrilled you could join us today. If you could follow along as I read the disclaimer aloud, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here, so know that the materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Before we get started, I want you to know how to interact here on the Adobe environment. If you look to the top of your screen, you'll see an icon of a hand with a plus sign. If you click on that icon, you could either raise your hand, agree, disagree, show applause, show laughter, or even signal requests like asking the instructor to speak louder or to slow down, please. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, we have our Files pod. Here you can find a copy of today's slides available for download. You just hover over the item and click on that down arrow. It'll save it onto your device's download section. Then in the middle, we have the web links pod. Here you'll find a link to today's webinar feedback survey, a link to subscribe to our emailing list, a link to connect with us on LinkedIn, and the final one is a link to download the Adobe Connect app. Finally, all the way to the right, we have the chat pod available. This is how you will communicate with the instructors as well as the NLC staff. Just type in the message that you want to send into the chat, and then you can either hit enter or you can click on that up arrow to submit it in. We do welcome comments and questions, so feel free to interact that way. And if you're experiencing any tech support issues, you can submit them there as well, and I will do my best to help you navigate. Just a quick reminder that most tech support problems can be solved by just exiting and then re-entering the meeting room. All right. With that, it is with great pleasure that I introduce today's webinar instructor, Russ Siegel. Russ, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Thank you, Brooke, and welcome. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Look forward to spending the next few minutes with you to talk about something that's near and dear to me. The title of this program actually came from, there were some old movies where the bank robber walks in and says, "This is a stick up, give me your money or, your life." And I think sometimes in the world of work, that's really where we are. We feel like we're being held up, and it's either we live to work or we work to live. We're here to make money so that we can do the things we want to do, the things that we need to do. But quite often it feels like work is holding us up and demanding our lives. I've been a consultant and a trainer for over 25 years. I've run the Sequoia Fund here, native CDFI in Cherokee, North Carolina, serving the Eastern Band of Cherokee for the last 15 years. And what I'm going to be talking about today is not something that's just unique to me or to people in a corporate environment. This is really something that we deal with our clients on a daily basis. They start businesses, and pretty soon they feel like they're being in the middle of a stick up, and their business is saying, "Give me your money or give me your life." And that's not really a fun place to be. So today we're going to talk about why we burn out, several reasons and some symptoms of burnout. We'll talk about how the little things make all the difference in our pursuit of balance and our pursuit of happiness. We'll talk about some models of how to achieve balance and how to build some habits so that we can reestablish balance in our lives. And if you would, go ahead and jump into the chat. Let me know what you do. I think having a little insight into where you're coming from will help make this a more fulfilling time together. It will certainly help me be able to address some things that might be more specific to you. Just a little bit about me. balance is something that I have honestly not been really good at throughout my career. You probably see some gray in my beard. I am a proud member of Generation X. And we Gen Xers, we were raised by the World War II generation. We were raised by baby boomers, and part of what we grew up with was that you just put your nose to the grindstone and you get to work. And if you want something, you work for it. I was 10 years old and my neighbor had a bike for sale, and I wanted $50 to buy that bike. And my dad said, "You don't need $50. You need a job." And he pointed me to the garage where we had all kinds of things that I could use to get out there and make money. I could rake leaves, I could clean gutters, I could mow lawns, just all kinds of things. Thank you, Carlos. Isleta del Sur. Yes, I think we met. Wonderful to have you here. Good to have you again, Carlos. So yeah, I learned from a very early age that if you want something, you go out and you work for it, and you just earn the money. So a little confession, because I believe confession is good for the soul. I'm going to tell on myself a little bit about just how bad my pursuit of balance has been over the years. I had a job when my first child was born. She was born in what we in the eastern part of the country have affectionately come to call the blizzard of '93. And we had to stay in the hospital a couple of extra days because we couldn't get out of the hospital. We couldn't find our minivan in the parking lot. It was buried. So a friend came and drove us home in a four-wheel drive. And the day we got home with the baby, the phone was ringing, and I knew exactly who it was. We didn't have cell phones in those days. I wasn't able to look and see the number of who was calling, but I knew exactly who it was. And it was work. And my wife begged me to not pick up the phone. And I did. And the day our first child came home, I went to work. Not a great start, admittedly. Not a great way to pursue balance in our lives. I'm going to talk about some myths of balance as well today, about how sometimes our pursuit of balance can get us into trouble. It causes us more strife than really we should take on. Maybe sometimes the pursuit of balance is more than we need to do. And I think there's a different way. So we're going to be talking about that. Albert, great to see you. Thank you so much for attending. And Trevina, good to see you as well. Thank you all for joining us today. So here's a sea monster. I've never met anyone who started a business or took a job and said, "I want to do this because I want to create something that is going to rise up from the deep and swallow me whole. I want to create a job. I want to create a business that's going to completely suck the life force out of me, that's going to drain me of my energy, of my passion, of my soul. It's going to make me irritable at home. It's going to make me cranky with my children. It's going to make me distant from my neighbors." And yet, all too often, that's what happens. We create a business or we take a job that we think we're going to get to do exactly what we love. And before we know it, the job owns us. It owns our time. And it's not that the job comes to us and says, "We're going to completely overtake your life." No, sometimes we allow that to happen. We allow that to happen because in our minds, we have families to feed. We have mortgages to pay. We have bills to pay. We have things that we need to do. We've got a vacation coming up. We've got to make sure that we earn money for that. We've got to have a job that gives us benefits and health care and takes care of the things that we do, like eyeglasses, all those neat little things that are kind of necessary. And the money becomes our why. The money becomes the reason we do what we do. Well, there's an author. Maybe you've read some of his stuff. His name is Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote a great book called What's Your Why? And I'm going to give you just a little taste of that because I think it matters in our pursuit of balance. Cynic says that our why has got to be bigger than money. It's got to be bigger than us. It's got to be bigger than I just like to do this work. Your why is everything. Well, why is money not enough? For generations, psychologists have known money as something called a hygiene factor. And what that means is that once you have enough of it, it ceases to be a motivator. Well, let's think of some other hygiene factors. Let's say you're underwater. You're holding your breath. You don't realize how far from the surface you've gone, and you dove deep. Now you need to breathe. All of a sudden, air becomes a tremendous motivator. You've gone down deep. You need to take a gulp of air. You're fighting to get back to the surface so that you can do that. But once you have enough air, air doesn't motivate you anymore. The same thing with fresh water or food. Once you're hungry and you eat, food ceases to motivate you because your hunger is gone. It's the same way with money. Once we have enough to do what we want to do, money goes from being a motivator to being a scorecard. Now, this is kind of exciting. When you own a business, money becomes your barometer. When you start making a lot of money, that's an indicator of success. By the way, another great indicator of success is Uncle Sam. When you owe a lot of taxes, and I know nobody likes paying taxes, but when you owe taxes, that's Uncle Sam's way of saying, hey, you did really well. We want a cut of that. So there are a lot of barometers of success out there. But money becomes a way of keeping score. It ceases to be a motivator. So what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Now, this is going to become important in a little while because we're eventually going to get around to the question of if your why is really big and you're doing what you do to achieve a purpose or to achieve something in your life that you want to do or that you want to happen, is this the best way to do it? Could you do this another way? And I'm going to give you a really hard lesson that my former neighbor, David, gave me one time. When I started my very first business, my next door neighbor was a banker. And I took my business plan to David. And I was so proud of this business. The first business plan I'd ever written. I was right out of college. I thought I knew everything. And he took my business plan and he thumbed through it and he handed it back and he said, "Don't do this." And I said, "Why?" He had gone straight to the numbers. And he said, "For the amount of money you're going to be making from this business, you're going to be miserable. You either need to find another way to make this amount of money, or you need to find a way to make this business make more money because you're going to be miserable." He said, "If you're not going to make any more than this, go flip burgers at McDonald's." And that devastated me. I had worked so hard on this business plan. But David was right. For the amount of money I would have made with the plan the way it was, I would have been miserable. So I had to find a way for the business to make more money. And as it turned out, I couldn't do it. So I wrote another business plan for a completely different business. I didn't want him to be right. But he was the first one to introduce me to the concept of money can't be your why. Money cannot be the reason you do what you do because there are other ways to make money. There are other ways to invest your money. If you're going to invest your money, would it be better to just invest it in another company? Invest it in the stock market. Put your money in a CD. Hide it in a hole in the backyard. But money can't be your why. Well, the reason money can't be your why is because money makes it really easy to burn out very quickly. In the pursuit of money, as we chase it and chase it and chase it to get more and more and more, to keep it as our motivator, to keep it as that carrot that hangs out there in front of us, if we are still motivated by that, it's going to run us ragged. It's going to wear us down. Now, there are several reasons why we burn out. Some of these reasons are in our control, and some of these reasons are out of our control. So let's take a look at those. The things that are in our control are the hours that we work. Now, again, you may have a job where the hours that you work are part of the fun. It's part of what you do, it's part of your DNA, and it's okay. I know people who don't make very much money as emergency medical technicians or firefighters or police officers. They don't make very much money at all, but they love what they do. They don't mind being on call. They don't mind working long hours. I know people who work for the power company. They're the linemen for the power company. And when the power goes out, when there's a big storm, people say, "Oh, bless their hearts." I'm like, no, no, no. This is their Super Bowl. They love a good hurricane. They love a good thunderstorm or something that's going to knock the power out. Yeah, it means long hours. It also means overtime, but they're doing exactly what they love. So, yeah, this is their Super Bowl. So, long hours and overwork don't necessarily alone burn us out. The old saying that sometimes is attributed to Confucius, that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. We really don't know who said that, but for some jobs, it's true. But just realize that there are no solutions in life, there are only trade offs. Let me say that again. There are no solutions, there are only trade offs. So if you are pursuing dollars, if you're pursuing a certain level of a lifestyle, say you've just bought a really fancy car or truck and you want to maintain that lifestyle, well, that's going to require some long hours. It's going to require some overwork. So, work can be an energizer, but at a certain point, we start to see diminishing returns. Yale University just did a study not too long ago that said our productivity drops off significantly at 50 hours a week, and it drops off the cliff at 58 hours a week. So at 58 hours a week on average, once you go past 58, if you're trying to work 60 hours a week, 5 12-hour days, you're really not getting much done after the 50th hour. You're kind of just going through the motions. So long hours, that is in our control. The lack of boundaries. The higher you go in an organization, and if you start a business, guess what? You start at the top of the ladder. The higher you go, or if you start at the top of the ladder, you have fewer and fewer boundaries because there are more and more things that you have to do. If you start a business, it's like I mentioned to a group on Tuesday. Sometimes you start a business doing one thing that you really love, but you've bought yourself 14 other jobs that you don't know very much about. And now you have to become the accountant. You have to become the chief marketing officer. You have to become the HR, the human resources specialist. You have to do all of these things. And all of a sudden, the boundaries between what we do and what we love and who we interact with, all of those things start to blur. But also, the higher you go on that ladder, and if you own a business, you're at the top, there's a lot of isolation. At the bottom of that pyramid, when you're just one of the people doing the work and one of the minions, and I was a minion for years, you're surrounded by a lot of minions, right? You're surrounded by a lot of people who are in the same boat as you, doing the same thing as you. You can get off by the water cooler and commiserate. You can talk about the boss. You can do a lot of those things. You can hang out on the weekends. You can go to each other's house for a cookout and things like that. When you start climbing up that ladder, rung by rung, you are more isolated because you're surrounded by fewer peers. And there was a line, if you remember, one of Tom Hanks' lines in Saving Private Ryan, when all of his guys were sitting around complaining, he said, "Complaints go up, never down." And so that makes it a little bit more isolated at the top when you can't do the same level of chit chat that you used to be able to do with people who are on the same level as you. You do become more isolated, but that is also something that we can control. A lot of people who start businesses join masterminds, or they join groups. I really love what they're doing at Isleta del Sur. They are doing some wonderful things uh, to put people who own businesses together. That is a group of people who are going to be able to support each other. You want to be around people who are, maybe they're not in the same boat, but they're in the same lake. You're doing a lot of the same things, and you can talk about some common issues. That helps to eliminate some of that isolation. If you are in constant decision making mode, and I think our formatting here is a little bit off, but it's constant decision making is a big issue, because again, if you are running a business, if you are running a tribal department, if you are running an organization, if you're if you're the CEO of the tribal hospital, you are in constant decision making mode. And every person who approaches you, your radar goes off. It's like, oh, this person's going to ask me to make a decision. So there's a constant state of tension within you that always happens. And if you run a business, whether it's your customers calling, a supplier, maybe it's a vendor, maybe it's somebody who's just coming to, they're supposed to be showing up to check your HVAC system or work on a work truck or something. There's just this constant barrage of decisions that have to be made. Well, we can control that as well. And we're going to talk about how to do that. We tend to not take very good care of ourselves in our pursuit, because money then becomes our why. We have to make money to take care of our family. We have to feed our family. We have to clothe our family. We have to educate our kids. We have to keep a roof over their head. We have to teach them a lot of things. We do all of that, and we completely ignore ourselves. We don't take good care of ourselves. And I'm going to tell you some stories about people who are at the top of the ladder. They run major businesses, and yet they find ways to take care of themselves. They build in that self-care into their daily routine. Perfectionism. Perfectionism really sometimes is the enemy of good enough. When we delegate work, it may not get done the way we would do it, but is it good enough? If we contract that work out, is it the way we would do it? Probably not, but is it good enough? In our pursuit of perfection, we stress ourselves out and we fail to do things, and then perfection becomes a barrier to completion, because perfection is the enemy of done as well as good enough. Sometimes it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be done. Like when I taught my nephews how to mow my lawn. It didn't get done the way I would do it, but it freed up 2 hours of my time. And it didn't look so bad that I couldn't live with it. It's not like the neighbors were all out pointing at my lawn, making fun of me. They knew that my nephews were learning, and they were earning their own money. Employee management issues. This is sort of one of those umbrellas. People are messy. Let's just face it. People are messy. We're all messy. People are just messy. Humans are messy creatures. We have sick kids. We have fights with our spouses. We have cars that just refuse to start in the morning. We have power outages that cause all the food in our refrigerator to spoil. Just all kinds of things that people bring to work. And that causes messy issues. And so you, as the person who's in charge, you have to deal with these things. And sometimes you just have to listen to these stories and take a minute to let people get things off their chest. But all of these things are in our control. What are the things that are out of our control? Well, especially if you own a business, is the economy going to be friendly to us this year? What's going to happen? It's a presidential election year. Things get crazy in a presidential election year. What happens if one of our major suppliers goes bankrupt? How is this going to work for us if there's a major recall on one of our products, or if our customers' tastes change and we're not popular anymore? This is a constant stressor for small business owners. There's always financial pressure, because in the pursuit of money, we still have to pay bills. We have to make enough money to do things and make sure our vendors get paid. There's just a high level of responsibility, and that high level of responsibility is just another big umbrella that covers everything that you do, and that constant pressure on us really breaks us down. But hey, there's a dirty little secret here. That's not really a dirty little secret. It just is what it is. And that is, these are just symptoms. These are just symptoms. They are not the causes of burnout. It's like when a company comes to us and they say, I'm having a sales problem. Well, are sales really your problem? Yeah, I have a sales problem. Well, maybe you don't have a sales problem. Maybe you have a training problem because you didn't properly train people how to sell. Sales is not a problem. Let's do some training. Let's get to the root cause. And when we look at all of these, there is a set of root causes. And I believe that one of the biggest root causes is something that we've all been told we should pursue, and that is work-life balance. Balance, to me, indicates that we have 24 hours in a day. We should spend 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours working, 8 hours pursuing something else. How many of us do that? Raise your hand. I'm not seeing a whole lot of hands out there. We don't divide our time evenly among all the things that we have to do. We really don't have balance. And I think balance might be, and we're going to use the word balance throughout today. So don't misconstrue this. I think that we can pursue balance, but I think the idea that we have to live in balance is additional pressure that causes more burnout. So let's stop looking for work-life balance. Let's instead work toward work-life integration. Again, growing up, Gen X, my father was always one of those people who you don't take work home with you, and you don't take your work problems to the dinner table, and you certainly don't take family matters to the office. Nobody cares about your life, and nobody cares about you, and you just go there to work and keep those two things separated. Well, folks, we don't have compartments in our brains where I can take the fight that I had with my wife last night, and I'm going to put it in a box, and I'm going to come to work the next day, and I'm going to feel great, and I'm going to have a great attitude and a lot of energy, and everything works. Maybe I find out that a coworker has cancer. Am I going to really put that in a box and turn off that switch and go home and everything's going to be great? I'll play with the kids and do the couple of projects around the house, and everything is just happy, like the end of a sitcom or the end of a great movie. No, we don't have compartments, and we don't have boxes, and we can't segregate those things. And if we can't segregate all of those issues, then we have to find a way to integrate our work and our life and how we get things done in a way that brings us energy. Now, for small businesses, what this can mean is that we need to start refocusing ourselves. And it's going to take a little different mindset. This is going to be uncomfortable for some of us, I know, but here we go. We have to start, and even if you don't own a business, even if you're not the business owner, this will apply to you as well. We need to start working on the business rather than in it. If we start working on our work rather than in our work, we're going to see huge leaps in how we feel about things and how we perceive the world around us. Here's what this means. When we work in our business, when we work in our jobs, we're focused on tasks. We're focused on getting things done. We've got to check the boxes. We've got to get that checklist done. We've got to get X number of things done before we go home at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we've checked all the boxes, and we are completely ground down by the exhaustion of just checking off the boxes and getting the work done. What also happens when we are focused on just keeping our nose to the grindstone, put the blinders on and get the work done. We are not focused on making our environment more productive. We're not focused on making our environment more open to helping us get things done. Well, what do I mean by that? If you own a business and you spend more time working on the business, you're going to be able to create some systems. You're going to be able to create a culture. You're going to be able to create an attitude and an atmosphere that makes it easier for you to do your work. But it's also going to make it easier for everyone else to do their work. We're going to talk a little bit about systems shortly, but this is a major shift in our mindset, that we should stop doing the technical work and that we should start focusing on all of the things that go around that technical work: the environment, the atmosphere, the attitudes, and all of those other things. I'm going to ask you to take a piece of paper. You can do this now or you can do this later, but I want you to jot this down. Oh, and by the way, over in the bottom left, you're going to see all of these slides in the file section. You don't need to copy all of this stuff down. You don't need to be taking a whole lot of notes. You can just download this for future reference. But this is something that I want you to focus on, whether it's right now or whether it's tonight, but do it soon. Do it soon while it's on your brain. I'm gonna talk about this next slide. This is a tool that I learned from an Australian named Chris Ducker. Chris Ducker runs a very successful one-person business. He has a lot more people in the business than just himself, but the business only employs him. He outsources a lot of his work. And the way he's been able to do this and build a really good lifestyle for himself is to focus on working on his business rather than in it. And he started with this right here. Take a piece of paper, draw 2 lines, make yourself 3 columns. Now, the first column is things I hate to do. The second column is things I can do but shouldn't. I know we're missing the word shouldn't there. Things I can do but shouldn't. Things I can do but shouldn't. And the last column is things only I can do. Things I hate to do. Yeah, we got a little formatting issue here, but that's okay. Things I hate to do, things I can do but shouldn't, and things only I can do. I think this is going to be correct on your PDF. But here's the main thing. The reason I want you to do this is because I want you to be, and nobody's going to check your homework, by the way. Nobody's going to check your homework. I want you to be drop dead honest with yourself. Things I hate to do. If you own a small business and you hate doing payroll, put payroll on that list. If you hate doing marketing or social media, put it on that list. Here's something else, by the way. If you hate mowing your lawn, if you hate doing laundry, if you hate cleaning your house, put that on your list as well. Remember, this is not work-life balance. We're not segregating what goes on at work. We're going to integrate what goes on at work and what goes on at home. And if you come home every day thinking, I've got to clean the house and I hate cleaning the house, and that is going to put so much stress on you. Remember, we don't have compartments. You're going to feel that stress. It's going to add to your burnout. Maybe you're going to stay at work a little bit longer just so you can avoid having to go home and clean house or clean your garage out or get ready for that garage sale or mow your lawn or anything else that you're doing. Maybe put together the swing set for the kids. Maybe you really want to put together the swing set, but you just can't find the time. Things that you hate to do, put it on that list. Now, things that I can do but shouldn't. This is where it gets real. Because in your small business or in your role, wherever you are, there may be things that you have taken on because you believed it was your job to take it on. Nobody told you to do it, but you saw that it needed to be done. So now every time the toner needs to be changed in the copier, every time the copier is out of paper, every time the mail needs to be checked, you're doing it because nobody else will do it. It's not in your job description, but it's got to get done. For a small business owner, maybe, yes, you could sit down this weekend and create a website. Maybe you could do your own bookkeeping. But is that the best way for you to invest your time? Is that something that someone else could do for you? Could someone else clean your house? Could someone else mow your lawn? Could someone else do this for you? Yes, and Lindell, I love this. Can't wait to do this. Maybe it will help with time management, prioritizing, delegating. Help. I got my takeaway nugget for today. Yes, this is the middle of this. I love this tool. This is one of my favorite tools ever. Thank you, Chris Ducker. When you start to identify things that you can do but shouldn't, you're going to find that you're doing a lot of things that you should be delegating, outsourcing, hiring. You don't need to learn how to be an accountant to have your bookkeeping done. Yes, you should know how to speak the language. You should understand the language of accounting. You should understand the language of bookkeeping. You should understand the language of taxes. But it doesn't mean you have to be a CPA on top of being an auto mechanic or a networking expert or anything else that you do. You don't have to do all these things because the critical column is column 3. Things that only you can do. These are things that no one else can do. If you started a business, did you start your business with a level of expertise? Did you start your business with a level of knowledge or maybe a certification? Maybe you are the dentist in the dental office. And the reason I say that, and I'm going to pick on dentists here for just a moment. There are a lot of things that go on in a dental office. You have the person who handles reception and the front desk and scheduling. You have a person who handles insurance filing and all those other things. You have a person who is your dental assistant. This is the person who's going to hand the dentist the tools when they're doing a procedure. They're going to make sure all the tools are cleaned and sanitized and everything's in its place and everything's organized. And you have the dental hygienist who's going to come and clean the teeth. They're going to clean teeth and they're going to converse. They're probably your customer service agents for a dental office because they're the ones who spend the most time with your clients. And they're going to be involved in people's personal lives and they're going to know about people's kids and things like that. But then you have the dentist. And the dentist is going to be floating around among all these things. The dentist is going to be checking the hygienist's work. They're going to be doing a crown or they're going to be doing a filling or an extraction. So they're going to be interacting with their assistant. They're going to be talking about, did we get paid for this? They're going to be interacting with the office staff. But if you don't have the dentist, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters in an office. If the dentist gets hit by a bus, the dental practice closes. Because that dentist is the key driver for that practice. So, are there things in the dental practice that dentists can do, but shouldn't? Yes. Could that dentist operate the autoclave to sanitize the tools? Yes, that dentist could do that, but should she? That is not the best use of her time. Could she clean teeth? Sure, she could clean teeth. She's trained in all of the things hygienists are trained in. But is that the best use of the dentist's time? No, the dentist is going to focus on things that only the dentist can do and let everyone else do what they do. So if you think of yourself that way, I want you to think about your business, your practice, your office, your job, whatever it is that you do. What are the things that no one else here can do? That's going to be what I focus on because that's going to help not only motivate you and drive you to do what you love, but it's also going to set you apart. And this is really difficult for me, by the way. Again, confession is good for the soul because I've been with Sequoia Fund for so long. I have done a little bit of everything. I've done it all. So it would be really easy for me if we needed another loan officer, it would be really easy for me to just take on that role because I've done it. It would be harder for me to say, no, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to spend my time hiring someone who can do that. And while that may be harder for me personally, it is the best thing for me to do for the organization. So I want you to be thinking about, how do you focus on those things in column 3? How do you offload the things that you hate to do? How do you let people do those other things for you? How do you force yourself to give up those things that you can do but shouldn't, and focus on only what you can do? I'm going to focus on entrepreneurs here for just a minute, but if there are some, and I know we've got some entrepreneurs with us, if there are things that you don't love, they probably fall into one of these 5 categories. Most entrepreneurs that I've dealt with over the last 25 years don't love building systems. They'd rather just wing it. Hey, let's reinvent the wheel every day. Let me do something different every morning when I get up, because that's exciting. I kind of get up every morning and put my startup pants back on, and I feel good about having to come up with new ways to do things. But in the process, they create work for themselves, and they don't create any level of balance because they're always just doing rather than building. This would be like getting up every morning and having to build a hut to protect you from the rain, rather than spending the time to build a nice house that protects you from everything. We're not really good at scrutinizing details. Most entrepreneurs I've dealt with are very high level dreamers, very high level thinkers. They want to see the big picture. They want to move in one direction, but they don't really want to spend time analyzing data. They don't want to spend time looking for patterns, looking for things that are in the kind of that minutia that need to be adjusted and fixed. This, by the way, is what ChatGPT is really good at. A lot of people are not yet into ChatGPT or any other AI, but AI, for the most part, right now is just really good at spotting patterns. So let's say you feed it into data and you find that every Friday you're sending people home because there's just not enough work for them to do. Okay, well, that helps you make one of two decisions. Do you close on Fridays? Do you just not work on Fridays? Do you compress everything into a 4-day week? Or is there something you can do to start generating more activity on Fridays to give people a reason to be there on Fridays? So you've got some tools out there right now that are really good at helping you scrutinize the detail when that may not be your forte. Most, unless you're in an accounting or bookkeeping position, don't love the accounting and bookkeeping. And yeah, we've got a lot of tools out there. We've got QuickBooks Online. I'm going to show you a tool here in just a moment that I think is probably better than just about anything. If you find that you have to do this yourself and you don't have a lot of options, or you want to do it yourself because you do believe that this is the best way for you to keep a handle on things, I'm going to give you a really great way to do that without having to become an accountant to do it. But the whole thought of doing accounting, doing your bookkeeping, it bogs people down. And it becomes one of those I'll get to it tomorrow things. Then tomorrow never comes. Before you know it, you're carrying a shoebox full of receipts to your tax preparer who just wants to, bury you in one part of the county and bury the shovel in another part of the county. They're not going to love you for that. So again, which column does accounting and bookkeeping fall into? We don't do a good job preparing for growth. We prepare for today. We prepare maybe for tomorrow. But very seldom do we prepare for what happens if I take on that one big customer, or what happens if my name gets out there and people start calling me and I guess the equivalent would be go viral. What do I need to do today to prepare for growth? And delegating. Now I'm going to tell a little bit of a story on my chief operating officer. She hates delegating, and she'll tell you she hates delegating. One of the reasons she hates delegating, and we have a lot of summer interns over the years here at Sequoia Fund, and she says that invariably, anytime she delegates to them before the end of the summer, she becomes their intern. That they figured out a way to help make her do the work, and she's kind of got a point. But for a lot of us, we would rather just do it ourselves because, hey, it's only going to take me 5 minutes to do it. It's going to take me 20 minutes to teach you how to do it, right? And why would I spend 20 minutes teaching you how to do it if I could just do it in 5 minutes? The issue is not the 5 minutes. The issue is that 20 minutes you spend teaching something that you can forever delegate is going to save you an accumulation of 5 minutes here and there. And the number of times that it saves you 5 minutes, that's minutes you get back in your life. Remember, we're not segregating tasks, we're integrating things. And so if I can spend some time teaching someone how to use a program, teaching someone how to complete a document, teaching someone how to discuss a certain topic with a client, teaching someone how to use a piece of equipment, that's minutes that I get back in the future. It's an immediate investment that I'm going to see returns on later down the road. So we can't be afraid to delegate, but we just don't love it. So let's back up and talk about some of these as we go. One is it kind of crosses the boundaries between accounting and bookkeeping, preparing for growth, scrutinizing details, and building systems. And that is in our financial systems. To help ease some of the pressure on us, we need to find ways to build solid financial systems, which means we need to break down what are those daily tasks that we have to do, what are the weekly tasks that have to get done, and what are the monthly tasks that have to get done. And maybe you find that the daily tasks, well, that's something that only you can do. Maybe you're going to tally up everybody's till at the end of the day. Maybe you've got 3 cash registers running and you're going to make sure you're the one who counts the money because that's your responsibility. You're the boss. But you're going to turn those numbers over to someone who can do your weekly bookkeeping tasks. So they're going to look at your cash flow. They're going to start doing some comparisons. How did we do this week last year? Maybe the week after the 4th of July. How did we do last year? Did we have a storm last year that caused us to do better or worse? What happened? And that person's going to update our weekly financial records. But then we're also going to have those monthly tasks, like reconciling our bank statements, preparing financial statements. Who's going to do that? And I know for those of you who are in the program at Isleta del Sur, you have to submit financial statements. Do you do that? Or is that something you can let someone else do? So as you start to segregate what needs to happen when, that's the first step to building some systems. I would caution you, though, if you are determined to do your own bookkeeping, if you don't understand accounting and you're not great with computers, don't fall for the notion, or don't fall for this myth that you have to use QuickBooks. And I know QuickBooks has built a huge name, a huge following. It's the big brand. It's the big kid on the block. But if you don't understand accounting and you don't understand computers, QuickBooks is only going to help you do one thing, and that is to screw up fast. QuickBooks will get you in a lot of trouble. So let me give you something better, something different, something simple, and that is the DOME Simplified Monthly Bookkeeping Record. This little brown book, you can find this at any bookstore. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from barnesandnoble.com. You can pick it up anywhere. It's about $25. It's a plastic bound notebook. So it's durable, it's rough. You can keep it in your work truck. You can throw it in a toolbox. You can keep it right there with you all the time. I'm going to recommend that you buy a good stapler as well. And I'm going to tell you why. In this bookkeeping record, you can start in any month of the year. You don't have to start on January 1. You can start anywhere. You're going to enter your expenses as you pay them. You're going to enter your deposits as you make them. You're going to record the type of expense you have as you incur it. And at the end of every month, It gives you a really easy way to translate all of those expenses into a very simple profit and loss statement, a little cash flow that shows you how did you do this month. And you carry forward month to month to month so that you can build your year and see how are we doing this year. Now, the reason you want to keep a stapler with you is that as you get your receipts, let's say you build up a month's worth of receipts, you stick those in that little thin notebook that starts to get fatter and fatter, and you're going to staple those right in there. You want to staple them in there because you want it to all be there when you take that big fat stack of receipts and you're going to give that to your tax preparer. At the end of the year, they're going to love you for this. It is really simple to keep up with, and because it's simple, you're going to use it. We like to think about using complicated systems, but complicated systems don't get used, and it creates stress. This is something you will actually keep up with. I promise. Once you start to use this, I would recommend using this for a year or two, and you don't have to stop there. I know people who have run businesses for decades using this particular tool, and this is all they use. They're not computerized. But let's say you want to go to a computerized system at some point like QuickBooks. Well, now you've got a basis for starting a computerized system. You can take this and translate that into QuickBooks, and it makes it so much easier because you start using this on a regular basis. It helps you build good financial management habits, and that's going to take away a lot of your stress. Just to know that every day when you look in there, yeah, I spent this, I spent this, I spent this, and it's all recorded. I don't have to go chasing these things down. I've got the receipts right here. If Uncle Sam comes knocking and wants to audit me, I've got everything right here. I'm unafraid. Everything's going to be fine. This is going to help you as much as anything else that we talk about today. But when we talk about finances, in our management, in the way we get things done, we need to stop trying to look under every rock. We need to stop trying to look for every needle in every haystack. And we need to start thinking about our numbers as a dashboard. In your car, your dashboard tells you how fast you're going, how much gas you have. Is your oil pressure and your oil temperature okay? Is the engine temperature okay? Are you getting ready to overheat and be left on the side of the road? And basically, for everything else, it gives you one of those little dummy lights that, the little amber light pops up and says, take this to the dealership. Hey, big dummy, something's going on here. Have somebody plug this in and tell us what's going on. Because your car, modern cars built in the last 20 years, they make more decisions than we can keep up with. Their electronics are so sophisticated. When you brake, when you hit the brakes, your car starts to look at your the angle of your wheels, the speed, the road conditions, and it tries to brake so that you don't spin out of control. Now, in the old days, when I was learning to drive, you hit your brakes and the brakes stopped the tires, and then nature took its course. Newton's laws of physics kicked in and you ended up wherever you ended up. Today, it's not like that. You can't keep up with every decision your car makes, and you can't keep up with every number created in your business, so don't bother. If you find that your paperclip expense went up 300% this year, is that really something to be alarmed about? Or maybe you spent $1 on paper clips last year and you spent $3 on paper clips this year. Is that going to be what you lose sleep over? No. But because we don't look at the right things, we create stress for ourselves. We create that. Remember when I said employee management issues, perfectionism, high levels of responsibility? When we start to look at those types of things, when we could be just looking at a few critical numbers, why would we do that to ourselves? Look, create a dashboard for your business. Chances are you're going to have some very simple things that you want to track. Revenue, sales is always good because sales is fun to look at. Hey, what did we ring up today? What did we ring up this week or this year? expenses is kind of it's kind of important because we need to know where we're spending our money. But we can also look at things that are industry specific. How many repeat customers do we have? Repeat customers might be important because we don't want to be spending all of our time out there fighting for new customers, investing in advertising just to get a few new customers. Repeat customers are cheaper to acquire, cheaper to keep. We might be looking at our average ticket. Maybe if we see the average ticket go down, and I'm going to use restaurants here for a second. Restaurants are starting to see average tickets go down. They're raising prices, and what's happening is people are not buying the appetizers. People are not buying the extra sides. People are not buying drinks. They're drinking water with their meal. So they're starting to see, hey, we're raising prices, but our average ticket is declining. That's a problem. And that might indicate one of those bigger economic issues that stresses us out. Oh, and by the way, interesting fact about Generation Z. Uh, Generation Z has really got the beer brewers worried because younger generations are not drinking beer. In fact, they're not drinking wine. Wine production has been off. Wine sales have been down the last couple of years, and it's really concerning people who make alcohol for a living. But if I'm in a restaurant, I'm probably also going to look at table turns. How fast can I move people through here? Now, I don't want to move people through too slowly because that means there's a table sitting with just a lot of people laughing and having a good time, but they've bought all they're going to buy. They've eaten all they're going to eat, and I could turn that table over to someone else. Now, I've also got to balance that with getting them out of there too fast because I do want them to enjoy their experience, and if I kick them out too quick, they're going to be upset with me. This is why a lot of really good restaurants keep the air cold. You'll see a lot of people wearing sweaters in the restaurant. The food is great. The atmosphere is fun. Everybody's loving it. But I'm not going to sit around and freeze to death. So when we're done and I've paid my bill, I'm leaving. It helps with the table turns. My little hardware store may never be as big as Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards or one of these others. But I can compare my sales per square foot, sales per employee, average gross margin, sales per hour. I can compare all those things to the bigger companies and see if I'm on the right track. Well, that's a pretty good dashboard indicator. I worked with a company years ago that tried to focus on every little expense. And the main driver of their business was how many tons did they ship per week. If the number of tons shipped per week was at a certain level, everything else was good. If it dropped below a certain level, that was room to get concerned. But by focusing on that one thing, they were able to relieve a lot of stress in their management because they weren't so much worried about the paper towel expense in the men's room in the western end of the building. Sometimes we get bogged down in the little things, and it's the little things that can trip us up. But it's also these little things that can keep us motivated. Because if we're focusing on the right little things, we can better achieve that balance that we're seeking, that integration that we're seeking. So what are some other systems that we need to create? And folks, again, you can create these even if you work for someone else. Don't believe you have to be limited just because you're not signing the paychecks. We need inventory management systems, payroll systems, benefits management. How many of us started a company and didn't realize that we were going to have to be proficient in state laws, federal laws, for benefits? But that happens. We have to be human resources professionals. We have to have HR systems. We have to have a way to track people's time off and their paid time off and sick days and things like that. We need IT systems. We need some technology. Or are we just going to be, hey, everybody bring your own technology to work and let's hope for the best? Sometimes that can work up to a point, but then at some point you have to realize that if we're going to grow and we're all going to move in the same direction, we have to have systems where everyone is using the same technology. Policies and procedures. Again, this is, and Lindell, this will help you as well when you feel professional using AI. This can actually help you write policies and procedures. We did not have an AI use policy. I've never written an AI use policy because we've only recently gotten AI. But when artificial intelligence made its debut, we said, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to let AI write the AI policy. And it did a fantastic job. It just wrote a policy on how we deal with people's use of AI. Are we going to let someone sneak into an office somewhere and create an AI machine that runs the world and destroys Sequoia Fund? Probably not. So we have to put guardrails on the highway, and that's one of the ways that we did that. You're going to need customer service systems. Yes, systems, not just policies, but customer service systems, so that everyone's answering the phone the same way. Everyone's telling the same information to customers, so they're not getting the runaround. They're not getting different information from different people. That difficult customers are all handled in a very consistent way, so that we don't get accused of discrimination, or that somebody's just off the handle. They're mean. We also, believe it or not, we need things like cleaning and maintenance systems. I'm going to mute myself for a second because I need to sneeze. I apologize. I'll be right back. Oh, thank you so much for indulging me that. I appreciate that. um, what we saw during COVID was everybody had to figure out how to work from home. They were working remotely. Everyone was dispersed. Nobody was around anymore. And so things like cleaning and maintenance, well, a lot of that just got put off. It was deferred. It didn't get handled in a timely way. We're starting to see a lot of things break down because of that. But making sure things get taken care of, there needs to be a system for that, so that we don't wait until it breaks. Because if we wait until it breaks, that just adds stress, and that's probably going to be more than one person under stress. The copier breaks down, and a lot of people need to make copies around here. We've got a stressful situation for everybody, so it's in our best interest to come up with a system where every so often maintenance is coming in and checking that system for us. But there are other necessary systems. There are other things that we need to do to help us do things in a more, well, let's just say orderly way, so that we're not stressing over the unknown. By the way, I've heard it said that the only people who like change are wet babies. Well, the truth is they'll fight you. Yeah, they want to be dry, but they'll still fight you over that diaper change. None of us like change. The problem is that it's not that we don't deal well with change. We don't like change, but we actually do okay with change. Humans are pretty good at changing and adapting. What we're not good at is uncertainty. Uncertainty. We deal well with change, but not uncertainty. So let's put some systems in place to eliminate some of that uncertainty, to help us better integrate our home life, our work life, our fun life, everything else that we have to do. Well, one of the ways that we can do that is through planning. This is just an example. I liked this image. I pulled this down. And so, if you use a notebook, if you use Apple Notes, if you use a calendar, if you use Post-it notes, folks, I'm for whatever works. I am not going to sit here and advocate for a specific system for how you organize your life, but have a system. Create something that helps you plan daily, weekly, and monthly. Now, I do like something that a friend of mine taught me years ago, and it's the ABC method. What he does is he sits down, he calls it his 2% solution, but I call it the ABC method. And here's the way this works. 2% of your day is 9 minutes. Do the math. Check my homework. 2% of your day is 9 minutes. And my friend Mike takes 9 minutes a day to do his planning, and this relieves a lot of stress. And here's how he does this. The last 4.5 minutes of his day, before he goes home, he sits down and he makes a to-do list for the next day. What are all the things he wants to get done? And that list never has more than about 5 things on it. Realistically, he hopes to complete 3 major tasks a day. He puts 5 on there because it helps him to stretch a little bit, helps him to really push himself. If you get more than about 5 things on that list, you're going to start to get overwhelmed and you're not going to get it done. So Mike sits down the last 4.5 minutes of the day. He creates 5 tasks. He comes in the next morning. The first 4.5 minutes, he reviews his list. Now, here's what happens, folks. At the end of the day, all of the things that are swirling around in his head that he thinks he needs to get done, well, that ends up on a piece of paper, and he lays it right on his desk. So he leaves all of those things at work. He doesn't have to take that messy swirl of tasks home with him, so he's not thinking about it at night. He's not waking up in the middle of the night thinking about it. He's dumped it. He's dumped it all right out there on paper, and he can come back to it the next day. So that's the first thing that it does. It helps him not take those things home. The second thing is that when he reviews it the next morning, he uses A, B, and C to rank the tasks. Our brains are funny instruments because they work on an unconscious level. We don't even have to think about it. You know, if you were trying to think of the name of a song and you think real hard about the name of the song and you can hear the tune, you can think of the tune, you can't think of the name of the song, it will frustrate you to no end. But as soon as you stop thinking about it and you move on to something else, your brain continues to think about that song. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, it'll hit you and you'll shoot straight up out of bed, and the name of the song will come to you because your brain is always working. Well, when Mike dumps all of those tasks out on paper at night, his brain is continuing to work on them in the background like a computer. And his brain has been sorting those tasks unconsciously. So he sits down and he labels them A, B, and C. And here's how this works. Your A tasks are the things that absolutely have to be done today. You cannot leave until your A tasks are done. Your B tasks are things that you would love to get done today, and the faster you can get them done, the better. But the world is not going to end if you have to put them off until tomorrow. C tasks are some of those longer range tasks, some of those I'll get around to it things that he puts on the list to try to push himself, and he gives himself time to do these tasks. The A tasks are urgent. I mean, they're burning down the house, have to get done. The B tasks are kind of a blend between urgent and important. The C tasks are important, but they're not urgent. What happens if he doesn't finish a B or C task? The B tasks become A tasks the next day. If he doesn't finish the B, it becomes an A the next day. That makes his list creation really simple. But by taking 9 minutes a day, labeling your tasks A, B, and C, he has created a really workable daily plan for himself. Some of those C tasks, he'll make little notes at the bottom of his page, and he's kind of taught me how to do this as well. We'll see something that needs to get done, and I'll make another little note, and I'll say, okay, it's not really on the radar right now, but I need to make a note of it. I'll put it on the list at a later time. Now, when budget season rolls around, when we know that we've got things coming up, when our audit season rolls around, when grant writing comes around, we've got some things that have to go on that monthly planning list. But if we keep it on the list, we keep it out of our brain. We don't agonize over it. Goal setting. You are 70+% more likely to achieve a goal if you just write it down. But your goals need to be specific. If I say I want to lose weight, that's not really a goal. That's a desire. But if I say I need to lose 23 pounds, and I need to lose 23 pounds by December 31st, that's very specific. It's measurable. I can get on a scale every day and I can look at that. It's attainable, because it's not trying to lose 23 pounds by tomorrow or by next week. It's by the end of the year. And I can break that up a little bit, and I can make that happen. It needs to be something that I can put a time limit on. I need to be able to look at that and say, okay, here's my deadline. So if we're setting goals, and we're setting goals in a very smart way, by the way, smart, maybe you heard smart here a minute ago, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. If we start to set goals that way, we're more likely to reach those goals. Lou Holtz, famous football coach, when he was a young man, he wrote down a list of 100 goals. One of those goals was to go skydiving. One of those goals was to coach a major college football program. One of those goals was to meet a president face to face. He has achieved every one of those goals. All 100 goals that he wrote down as a young man, he's achieved. In fact, he's met 4 presidents to date. And so just by writing things down, we're going to get a whole lot farther. And it's going to motivate us. Those goals can then become part of our why. And it gives us a long-range vision. Once we have done this, we need to start communicating our goals. Lay it out there. Put it out there in the universe. Let people know what your goals are. Because the more people who know about your goals, the more people there will be to cheer you on, to motivate you, to help propel you forward, and to help hold you accountable. So if my goal is to lose 23 pounds by the end of the year, and someone catches me eating an entire large pizza for lunch, you better bet they're going to hold me accountable for that. As a business owner, as a higher level employee, we tend to take on a lot of different roles. Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth. Michael's in his 90s now, and he's still running around like he's in his 20s. He's got so much energy. And Gerber said that within all of us, there are 3 people. There's the entrepreneur, there's the technician, and there's the manager. So if we start a business, we start with a dream. That's what the entrepreneur does. The entrepreneur dreams up, how am I going to change the world? How am I going to change my life? How am I going to change my family's circumstances? How am I going to change the way this gets done? How am I going to make customers happier? How am I going to do this better, faster, cheaper, whatever? So you have to be a dreamer to be an entrepreneur. The technician is the one who actually does the work. And when you start a small business, if you are a party of one, guess what? You're the technician too. You've got to make sure the work gets done. But someone has to make sure the work gets done, and that's the manager. Somebody has to make sure the bank deposit gets made, the bank reconciliations get taken care of. Somebody has to make sure that taxes get filed, that your annual LLC filing has to be renewed, that your corporate report has to go in, that your annual meeting has to happen. Somebody has to keep up with all of that. Well, can you be good at all of those things, or can this list here drive you back to the list of what you can do but shouldn't, and what can only you do? If you are the dreamer and you're not really good at being a manager, can you hire a manager? Can you hire someone to keep you in line, to keep you motivated, to keep you moving? Maybe your business has grown to the point where you can't be the technician anymore. If you're a car detailer, maybe you can't be out there detailing cars anymore because you need to be more of a manager. Can you hire and train other people to do the technical work? You have to make those determinations. So in the time that we have left, let's talk about how do we take all of this and start building some habits. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the folks who have built businesses, who have built a lifestyle around what they do, and have managed to find that integration that we're looking for. In talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I started with my uncle, who was a very accomplished owner of a machine shop and was built a great deal of wealth before he died. And yes, he built monetary wealth, but he also built a wealth of happiness. He had a very happy family life. He raised a couple of great kids. He was very deeply dedicated to his grandchildren and his wife, and he was a great neighbor. He was a good friend. A lot of people just really thought the world of him. I mean, he was one of my favorite people of all times, and he was one of my heroes. And I started with him because I wanted to know how he was able to do it. He did it with uh, a drafting certificate from a community college, and he built this multi-million-dollar business. But he had routines. He was routinely the first person in the shop every single day. Everybody else showed up at 7 or 7:30 to work. He was in there at 5 o'clock in the morning. But in the afternoon, he took time for himself. If it meant going to one of his kids' soccer games, if it meant going to a swimming meet, if it meant playing golf, even with one of his competitors, and he had a great relationship with his competitors. They would play golf together. They would go out to eat together. So he built these routines, and he was not the only one. He inspired me to go talk to a lot of other really successful people. And so these are some of the things that they came up with. And I've learned so much from just talking with people who really kind of have it all together. But he had a rigid schedule, as do a lot of other people. I've met people who read 3 newspapers. Yes, old-fashioned newspapers. Read 3 newspapers before 7 in the morning. Um, they keep a rigid schedule because that rigid schedule makes sure that they build in time for themselves. They take time to meditate, or they make time to pray, or they make time to cook, or they make time to take a walk with their dog or their spouse and their dog. They create these schedules that they hold sacred, and no one intrudes on those schedules. A lot of them use what's called time blocking. Time blocking has to do with our circadian rhythms. Sometimes we try to spread our tasks out through the day. Some of us are morning people. Some of us are night owls. My wife happens to be a morning person. I happen to be a night owl. We have a couple of people here at Sequoia Fund. They love getting in the office at 7 in the morning because that gives them an opportunity to get some things done before the phone starts ringing, before customers start showing up. And they've figured out how to do difficult, very cognitive intensive tasks, things that take a lot of brain power, at times when they are at their physical and mental peak, when they feel the best. Now, I hit my stride about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm going to schedule things that take a lot of brain power. I'm also going to schedule things that take some focus. Let's say I have to call a difficult client or have to have a difficult conversation with an employee. I'm going to do that when I'm at my peak, when I feel the best, because I'm not going to dread it. I'm not going to put it off. I'm going to block out time for technical work. I'm going to block out time for mental work. I'm going to block out some time for just things that have to get done, the necessary evils of a business. I'm also going to try to block out some time for me. So if you create these blocks based on how you feel during the day, and when you're tired and you're a little bit sluggish and maybe, you need a jolt of caffeine, maybe that's when you do some of the things that don't take a lot of the brain power and you can just coast through those things. But consider time blocking as a way to get some things done. Consistent follow-up. If we're going to delegate things to people, yes, that's going to take away the stress of having to do those things ourselves, but it adds the stress of having to make sure it was done. Remember, I said there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. But if we consistently follow up with people, then they understand that we're serious, that they're going to get things done, and we're going to hold them accountable. If you have a birthday party to go to, if you have a cookout to go to, if you have an event to attend, if you have bought concert tickets with your family or your spouse, if you have a vacation, keep your personal time personal. Find ways to disconnect. Because there are times when you're just going to need to breathe and not think about work. It's easier said than done, of course. But on the flip side of that, we're great at keeping appointments with the dentist, with vendors, with the doctor. We're great at keeping appointments with everyone but ourselves. If you're blocking off time to do certain things, if you're blocking off time to exercise, if you're blocking off time to spend with your family, maybe to go out to a movie and have some popcorn, block that time off, turn off your phone, and keep that appointment with yourself. It's going to make you happier. There are always necessary evils. There are always things that I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to go to the post office. I'm in my zone. I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to make that phone call. This person is going to be upset, and I really don't want to deal with this. Rip the Band-Aid off. It is just easier to deal with necessary evils immediately and get it out of the way. Mark Twain once said, and I'm going to butcher this quotation, I'm sorry, but I'm going to paraphrase. He said that I've dreaded a great many things that never happened. And that's what we do to ourselves sometimes. We think, oh, this is going to be a really difficult conversation. This client is going to be so unhappy. They're not going to be happy with me. It's going to be a really stressful call. I don't want to do this. And we put it off and we put it off and we put it off. But wounds don't tend to heal on their own. They fester and they get worse. Okay, they get infected. It's better to deal with it now. Let's put the antiseptic on now, make the phone call now. And what we might find is that customer was a lot less upset with us than we imagined. So let's deal with those necessary evils. Let's get them out of the way. And remember, we started to break down things where we said maybe this is urgent. Those A tasks are urgent, but the C tasks are important. If we always prioritize the urgent over the important things will never get done. And all we'll do every single day is walk around stepping on small brush fires instead of getting rid of the underbrush that fuels them to begin with. That's not healthy. People who have been successful as leaders define their own balance. Remember, I said balance kind of indicates that we have an 8-hour day to sleep, 8-hour day to work, 8-hour day to be, in recreation. And that's just not the case. Some people, especially people who are at the top of the ladder, routinely work 50 to 60 hours a week. And again, I'm not knocking it. If you enjoy your work, sometimes that is a lot of fun, but there are trade-offs. Some of us need more leisure time with our family. And I'm not the same man I was 20 years ago because I'm not in the same place where I was 20 years ago. My kids are grown. I don't coach fast pitch softball anymore. I don't go to soccer games anymore. I don't have to travel for basketball and volleyball anymore. I'm at a different place. So at whatever season of life you find yourself in, create this system that works for you so that you can enjoy whatever season you find yourself in. Some of us, we love to work longer. My kids are out of the house. I enjoy my work. I work longer now that my wife is retired and she's off doing her own thing. I love working. It is kind of my outlet because if I'm at home, she's got me doing some chores. But you might find that you only need 40 to 45 hours in the office. There's no preconceived expectation of a work-life balance. And so you have to define your own balance. You also need to get creative with your time. CEO.com did a survey. And in this survey, they found that executives on average spend 58 hours per week at work. Does that number sound familiar? 58 hours? Remember, I said that at 50 hours a week, our productivity starts to drop off. And our productivity basically ends at 58 hours a week. So the average then is 58 hours a week. But these executives in the survey also said that they spend between 6 and 7 hours a night sleeping. Well, now, if you're one of those people who absolutely has to have between 8 and 9 hours a week, again, you've got to find a trade-off there. You've got to figure out how you're going to get that thing done. But we don't just spend the rest of that time in recreation. Sometimes we need to be at that soccer game. Sometimes we need to be at that basketball game. Sometimes we need to be doing the things with the kids. And after they go to bed, we can go back to work for a couple of hours. There's no such thing as 8 straight hours of free time. It's always interspersed with other things that we have to do. We have commuting, we have cooking, we have taking the kids to school. And so the things that we get done in that time can be anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. Time gets encroached upon. Our work time encroaches on personal. Our personal encroaches on work. And so CEOs have to get creative in how they do this. They'll use carpools to catch up with the neighbors. They'll pick up the neighbors' kids to take them to ball practice, and that's when they kind of have that little conversation before and after. The president of Hotwire is a little excessive, I think. He trains for ultramarathons, and he does this during his daily commute. I mean, if you run an ultramarathon, one of these races of 50 miles or more, I have trouble sometimes running to the refrigerator. And this guy runs ultramarathons. He's the CEO of a global company. And he bikes, most days, he bikes 16 miles from his home to his work. And he gets there before 8 a.m. And on other days, when he doesn't bike, he runs 9 miles to catch public transportation. Now, of course, this assumes a lot of things, like the guy either never sweats or he's got a shower at the office because, again, if I run to the refrigerator, I'm sweating. But he has found a way to get creative to be able to use his time. These people also, by getting creative, they use leisure activities that increase their performance. So their pleasure is tied to their work. The guy who runs 16 miles to work, he says that the high level of physical activity he does gives him a lot of physical and mental benefits that help him in the workplace. It keeps him, keeps his heart and lungs strong, obviously, but it also gives him some mental acuity. It lowers his blood pressure, it lowers his stress level. And so there are a lot of other benefits with that. And working out is not the only way to do that. Some people will go home and they'll get on a PlayStation or something like that. But we also found, research has also shown that scientists who pursue a creative hobby, they were more likely to achieve a Nobel Prize than people who just, again, stayed in the laboratory and worked. Hobbies help us in more ways than one. Use no as a complete sentence. My grandmother taught me this, and I just didn't listen for the longest time. No is a complete sentence. We have to be firm in taking time for ourselves. Use that time to do things that improve our performance. Hold our personal time sacrosanct. Don't let anyone else intrude on that. And finally, let's learn from our mistakes. Sometimes we'll say no to a personal or professional event and we later regret it. Maybe I should have gone to that dinner. Maybe I should have made that contact. Maybe I should have gone to my kid's basketball game because I didn't realize she was going to break her ankle and this was going to be her last basketball game ever. Maybe we always look back on some of those things that we regret. So we need to learn from those mistakes that we make in our own pursuit of balance. Maybe I finished a little more work by staying late at the office, but I missed out on something that a story that my kid told at the dinner table. If you can learn from your mistakes, if you can start to build systems, and if you can start to follow your own systems to integrate your work life and your personal life, you will find that there's more happiness than if you pursue balance. And with that, again, no solutions, only trade-offs. I hope that the trade-off you made today by not doing something else and spending this time with me, I hope that was productive. I hope it helps you. And the deal that I make with the Native Learning Center is always that you can contact me if you have any questions. And of course, we're going to be here. You can always post questions in the chat. But at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Brooke. Brooke's going to give you some final parting words. She's going to give you a little survey to take, but you've got my contact information here. And if there's anything I can help you with in your pursuit of that work-life integration, I encourage you to give me a call. Let's have a chat about that. And I hope to see you again. Brooke, I think we're going to see each other again tomorrow. Is that right?
That is correct, Russ. Thank you so much for another incredible presentation. I'm going to be taking a lot of this and applying it to my own life. So double thank you on this one. I'm going to go ahead and launch today's webinar feedback survey, y'all. It just takes a couple of minutes to complete, helps us to know what things are working well for you, what places we can improve upon for the future. And just as Russ said, our next webinar is actually going to be tomorrow. So tomorrow you can learn how to make sure your small business can compete with the retail giants. So it's going to be at the same time. Registration is free as always. And feel free to access this as well as any of our other recorded webinars online. You can find them on our website, nativelearningcenter.com. There's a K-Theta webinars tab, and there's a whole recorded webinar section. So you can click on any of our recordings from about the past 2 years. Feel free to share them with your colleagues, share them with your friends. And please also check out our upcoming events posted to our various social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have our in-house produced podcast titled the Hope of Being a Native American podcast. We go into more focused topics within Native American housing and self-determination on that. You can listen on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And you can also view the video recordings with our guests on YouTube. And once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Russ for an amazing presentation. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day, and we do hope to connect with y'all real soon. It looks like some folks are typing, so I'm going to hang back for a moment before I close out. Oh, you're getting some love in the chat, Russ.
I love it. I love it. And thank you so much for all of you who contributed to today. I really appreciate that. And again, use these tools and let me know how it goes for you. I appreciate that.
Oh, and I do want to note that table that was a little bit distorted on the slide. I went and checked, and it is correct in the PDF. I'm so sorry I didn't catch that.
No, you know what? I didn't catch it either, and that's life. If that's the worst thing that happens to us today, I think we're going to be okay.
I agree. But yeah, y'all, if you download a copy of the PDF slides, that table that he was showing you with the 3 columns, the text is correct there, should you want to do that later on. So feel free to download it. It's right there in the files pod. But I'm going to go ahead and close out, and everybody have a fantastic rest of the day. And Russ, I'll talk with you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see some familiar names here with us today. Hope to see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody, take care.
Bye-bye.